welcome back to Square Off. We were looking for a deep dive on the state of the races in Arizona, and NBC's Steve Kornacki at the big board was the journalist I turned to. Here's our conversation. Let's start with the current polling landscape in the presidential race in Arizona. What do you see?
Yeah, take you through. This is our average of the major polls in Arizona. We've been having a running average in the presidential race, and we got Trump with a 2-point advantage in the polling average over Harris statewide right now.
What's the path to victory that would include Arizona in the race?
In a presidential race, I think, take a look at it this way. Let's call up our Road to 270 map. We got the 7 core battleground states in gray right here. Arizona is particularly crucial for Trump's path, potentially. I'm going to show you why. If you were to look at those polling averages in all these battleground states, they're all super, super close right now. But at least in the polling, Trump is doing a tick better in the southern tier of the battleground states than in the northern tier. So Trump's best path, at least if you look at the polling right now, would involve holding on to North Carolina, let me turn that red for the sake of argument, state he carried in 2020, picking up Georgia, a state he only lost by about 12,000 votes in 2020. You see, that would take him to 251. And then Arizona, again, a state that was about 10,000 votes, as you know, super, super tight. If Trump were to make that red, and the polling average does have him a tick ahead of Harris right there, you see he lands at 262. And the significance of being at 262 with Arizona added to Georgia and Carolina is from there, Nevada wouldn't do it. It's only 6 electoral votes. That would only get Trump to 268. But from 262, any one of these 3 northern battleground states would get Trump over 270. There's 10 electoral votes in Wisconsin. There's 15 in Michigan. There's 19 in Pennsylvania. So from 262, all he'd have to do is win one of those. And it's significant because the smallest, Wisconsin, was the closest in 2020. Trump only lost that state by 20,000 votes to Joe Biden last time. So he starts off, at least, in better position in Wisconsin than anywhere there. If Trump didn't get Arizona, if the Democrats block him there, then all of a sudden only one of these northern battleground states could get Trump by itself to 270, and that would be Pennsylvania. So it's crucial for Trump to set up an opportunity in the Midwest to only have to win one of those states.
Let's drill down on Maricopa County, the state's largest, accounts for more than 60% of the votes. Is there a path for Donald Trump to win Arizona without Maricopa County? He lost Maricopa by 40,000 votes last time, won the rest of the state by 30,000.
Right. I mean, we can call up here the results from 2020 just to remind you in Maricopa. There you got it. And I think the interesting thing is this: Biden winning this by 2.2 points, right, over Trump. So there's a little bit of room there, actually, if you want to be technical about this. Just because Maricopa is so big, it's more than, as you know, more than 60% of the vote statewide is just going to come out of Maricopa. So even a small shift in Maricopa can move thousands of votes statewide. And so if you just had Biden coming down to 49.8, right, and if you had Trump going up to 48.6, that's a net shift of just 1 point in Maricopa County. Biden still wins it, but the margin is basically cut in half for Biden. That would more than account for the statewide margin of victory for Joe Biden. So there is a way there if it's super, super close, at least based on how this played out in 2020, where Trump actually could lose it very narrowly and still win statewide if the rest of those rural counties in particular deliver for him.
Fascinating. Let's turn now to our Senate race, Democrat Ruben Gallego versus Republican Kari Lake. What is the polling showing us there?
Yeah, let's call up the polling average. We'll show you again the presidential. Now, keep that in mind. Trump by 2 in the average, and now you flip it over, and it's a totally different story in the Senate race. There's been the individual polls have really kind of bounced around a lot in this one, but again, more often than not, you're seeing Gallego ahead. You're seeing him run ahead of Harris. You see an 8-point spread here versus a 2-point gap in the average for Harris in the presidential. So a 10-point swing in the polling average between these two races. The best hope for Kari Lake, certainly, is just in the Trump era, which means the last 2 presidential elections when Trump was a candidate, 2016 and 2020. In all but one instance, where a state had a Senate race going on with the presidential race, in all but one instance in the last 2 elections, the winner of the Senate race and the presidential race in every state have been from the same party. So Gallego is trying to buck that trend, and Lake is hoping that in the end, if Trump wins the state, people just when they're filling out their ballots, just say, you know what, I'm voting Trump. I'm not voting for a Democrat for the Senate, and they check her name off.
Huh. That is fascinating. You know, we're fixated here on the split ticket voter. We see a lot of it. You know, there are districts Biden won where the Republican won the congressional seat. Does this tell you that Donald Trump's voters aren't going for Kari Lake?
That's certainly in the polling. There is a critical chunk of Trump voters who are actually not just going for Kari Lake, but who are actually voting for Ruben Gallego or saying that they're going to vote for Ruben Gallego. Of course, I think that's the nightmare scenario for Democrats, that, you know, if they're voting for Trump, is there a gut check moment? But as you say, you know, Arizona, you know, we talk about so many of these other states nationally just being one-party states, one way or the other. There is that tradition of Arizona splitting its tickets. You mentioned, you know, like Dave Schweikert in the first district. You could see, you know, a district that now Biden would have carried, a district that he represents now. See if there's potentially a split there as well. So, you know, if there's a state where it could buck that trend that I just described nationally the last two elections, you know, Arizona is certainly high on that list.
Terrific insights. Steve Kornacki, thank you so much for joining us. That really was fascinating. When we come back, our politics panel steps in, the stakes in this election, and what we're getting wrong about the races. Stay with us.